Imagine waking up one day and deciding you will no longer explain yourself to anyone, not to your friends, not to your family, not to the strangers staring, judging, assuming. You speak when you choose, you reveal only what you wish, and when people demand why, you give them nothing. No defense, no justification, only silence, or a smile that reveals nothing but a private amusement. At first, this might feel unnatural. Society has trained you from birth to explain yourself, to smooth over misunderstandings, to justify your choices, to prove your worth through explanations. It's a reflex so deeply embedded in your nervous system that not doing it feels like holding your breath. But here's the paradox. The more you explain yourself, the weaker your position becomes. The less you explain yourself, the more powerful you appear. And somewhere in that paradox lies one of the most dangerous weapons in human interaction. A weapon that Niccolo Machiavelli understood, kings and emperors wielded, and modern manipulators use without mercy: the authority of mystery. Think about the last time you saw someone not explain themselves in a tense situation. A boss who denied a request with no justification. A leader who changed direction without clarifying why. A person who walked away from an argument without defending their point. Didn't you feel a strange pull toward them? Whether it was curiosity, irritation, or even fear. Didn't your mind begin filling in the gaps, constructing reasons, imagining possibilities, granting them an aura of depth and control? That's the psychological trap. When you withhold your reasoning, you don't just keep your secrets, you allow other people's minds to work for you. They begin guessing, imagining, projecting. And most of the time, what they imagine is far greater, or far more intimidating, than the reality. Machiavelli once wrote, "The vulgar are always taken by appearances, and the world is composed chiefly of the vulgar." He understood that power often rests not in explaining truth, but in shaping perception. And nothing shapes perception like the unknown. But here's the question that should make your stomach tighten. If withholding explanation creates authority, then why do you feel an almost physical need to explain yourself? Why do you fear being misunderstood so much that you hand over your power just to set the record straight? What if, without knowing it, you've been conditioned to explain yourself as a form of control, not over others, but over you? What if every unnecessary explanation you've ever given was the invisible leash that kept you compliant, predictable, and safe for the system around you? You think explaining yourself is about truth, but what if it's about obedience? When you explain yourself, you reveal your inner map, your fears, your priorities, your blind spots. You give people the coordinates to your mind, and once they have those coordinates, they can navigate you, manipulate you, even trap you. But when you don't explain, you are unreadable, and the unreadable man is dangerous. So here's the unsettling paradox. The world tells you to be transparent, to share, to communicate. But the figures in history who held unshakable power, whether feared or revered, often mastered the art of saying less. Which leaves you with the great question: do you want to be understood, or do you want to be respected? Because sometimes, those two cannot coexist. The moment you stop explaining yourself, the world shifts. Friends may feel unsettled. Enemies may feel uncertain. Strangers may feel compelled to earn your approval instead of assuming it's theirs. Your silence stops being emptiness. It becomes a mirror that reflects people's insecurities back at them. And that's when you'll notice something strange. People start leaning in when you speak, because you rarely do. They start valuing your words more, because they have to work to get them. They start fearing your disapproval not because you never confirm or deny it outright. But here's the danger. This weapon is not just about social games, it's about identity. To wield it, you must be comfortable with being misunderstood. You must kill the part of you that craves validation through explanation. You must accept that some people will think you arrogant, cold, or even cruel. And most of all, you must be ready for the loneliness that comes when you no longer seek to be liked, only respected. So the real question is not, can you stop explaining yourself? It's, can you live with what happens when you do? Because once you start, there's no going back.
You will see people differently, you will see conversations differently, and you will see yourself differently, because you will finally understand that every explanation you gave in the past wasn't really for them. It was for you. And the day you no longer need to give it, you will know you've crossed a line that most people will never dare to approach.
You've been taught that explaining yourself is a virtue, that it means you're honest, transparent, trustworthy, but here's the darker truth, one you probably never stop to consider. The compulsion to explain yourself is not about truth, it's about survival. From childhood, you were programmed to seek approval through justification. When you wanted something, you had to give a good reason or risk punishment. When you made a mistake, you were expected to explain yourself or risk being labeled disobedient. When someone questioned you, silence wasn't an option, because silence meant guilt. So you learned that your safety depended on making others understand, and in doing so, you surrendered your power to their judgment. The psychology of submission. Carl Jung once wrote that people wear masks, the persona, to adapt to social expectations. This mask is what we show to the world so we can survive within it. But when your mask becomes dependent on constant justification, you lose the ability to stand without it. You become a slave to the opinions of others. Every time you explain yourself, you unconsciously affirm that the other person's approval is a currency you need. You reinforce the idea that they have the right to judge you. And here's the sinister twist. Explaining doesn't just give away your authority, it teaches people how to control you. Psychologically, humans operate with feedback loops. When someone questions you and you instantly explain, you reward their questioning with access to your inner world. Over time, they learn, if I push him, he'll reveal himself. If I corner him, he'll talk. They might not even do it consciously, but they learn you are predictable, and predictability is the death of authority. The tyranny of understanding. Friedrich Nietzsche believed that human beings fear the unknown more than pain itself, and yet modern culture idolizes understanding as if it's the highest good. We believe that if people understand us, they will accept us. But Nietzsche saw a danger in this. When you give people the whole of your reasoning, you make yourself small enough to fit inside their categories. And the moment they can categorize you, they can dismiss you. Think about political leaders, CEOs, or even streetwise hustlers. The ones who move without explaining their every move hold more influence than those who justify every decision. That's not a coincidence. It's human nature. Arthur Schopenhauer warned that a man is respected in proportion as he keeps himself from meddling with others and from allowing others to meddle with him. Constant explanation is an open door for others to meddle in your business. The biological trap. This need to explain runs deeper than culture. It's written into your biology. The human brain is wired with mirror neurons, cells that cause us to reflect the emotions and actions of those around us. When someone looks displeased or confused, your brain interprets that as a potential threat to social belonging. This is where the fight or flight response kicks in, not to physical danger, but to social disapproval. And instead of fighting or fleeing, modern humans evolved a third response: appeasement. Appeasement is when you neutralize the threat by over-explaining, apologizing, and smoothing things over before they escalate. It's a survival mechanism, but one that makes you harmless. How society weaponizes this against you. Governments, corporations, and institutions thrive when the masses are eager to justify themselves. When you feel the need to explain your actions, you self-regulate your behavior to avoid judgment before it even happens. You tell yourself, I'd better not do this. It would be hard to explain. You censor your own thoughts before speaking because you've been trained to imagine the cross-examination that might follow. This is why Machiavelli understood that power is about perception. The one who explains less not only controls his own narrative, he controls the mental space of others. When people have to guess your intentions, they expend energy thinking about you. When they know everything, they stop thinking about you altogether. The illusion of moral obligation. Perhaps the most dangerous conditioning is the belief that you owe people an explanation. This is one of the greatest lies of human relationships. Jean-Paul Sartre argued that hell is other people not because people are inherently bad, but because we are trapped in their perception of us. When you explain yourself, you're trying to manage that perception, a hopeless task because everyone interprets through their own bias. Here's the truth. You could give the most logical, sincere, and pure explanation possible, and still they will see you through the lens of their own fears, prejudices, and desires. So why hand them the weapon of your inner thoughts, only for them to twist it as they wish? The philosophical root. At its core, the compulsion to explain is a form of self-betrayal. It says, "Your understanding of me matters more than my own peace." Viktor Frankl, who survived the Holocaust, wrote that man's ultimate freedom is the ability to choose his own attitude regardless of circumstance. Choosing not to explain yourself is an act of reclaiming that freedom. It is telling the world, your perception is yours to manage. Mine is mine. But here's the cost. Freedom always comes with isolation. The moment you stop explaining yourself, people may accuse you of arrogance, secrecy, or manipulation. They may withdraw. Some will resent you for no longer playing the game. But that's the point. Because the game was never designed for you to win. It was designed for you to comply. You've been taught your whole life that to be good, you must be understood. But maybe the truth is the opposite. To be powerful, you must be misunderstood. And once you start seeing how deeply this conditioning runs, you'll start noticing the invisible chains that have been guiding your every word, every apology, every explanation. And you'll realize those chains were never locked. When you first stop explaining yourself, it feels like taking your hands off the steering wheel while the car is still moving. The air changes, the silence thickens, and everyone in the room feels it. You'll notice their faces first, that subtle flicker in their eyes, the tiny wince of discomfort. They were expecting the usual social ritual, their question, your justification, their judgment. Instead, you gave them a wall. And here's the strange thing about human nature. When people hit a wall they cannot see past, they don't just stop. They circle it. They probe for weaknesses. They speculate about what lies behind it. The vacuum you create. When you withhold explanation, you create a vacuum, and a vacuum demands to be filled. The human mind despises ambiguity. It wants answers, closure, a complete picture. When it can't get that from you, it manufactures its own. Maybe they'll assume you have a hidden advantage. Maybe they'll believe you're protecting powerful information. Maybe they'll think you're plotting something they can't detect. The truth doesn't matter. What matters is that you didn't hand it to them. And the less you say, the more they'll give you in return. Not because you asked, but because they'll try to close the gap themselves. The amplification effect, psychologists call this the amplification effect. When information is scarce, the perceived value of that information skyrockets. Imagine two leaders. One narrates every decision, detailing their reasoning to anyone who asks. The other offers only the bare minimum, leaving much unsaid. Over time, which one seems more capable, more in control? The one who doesn't need to explain, because authority is most believable when it's assumed, not defended. Machiavelli understood this well. In The Prince, he implied that leaders must sometimes conceal their intentions, even act against their stated values, to preserve their position. Why? Because if people know everything about your reasoning, they know exactly how to attack you. The paranoia of others. Refusing to explain doesn't just create curiosity, it breeds paranoia. People begin to project their own fears and insecurities onto your silence. If they feel guilty, they might assume your silence means judgment. If they feel threatened, they might interpret it as a challenge. If they feel inferior, they might decide you're looking down on them. Your silence becomes a mirror, reflecting their own inner battles. And most people can't stand to see themselves so clearly, so they either back away or overcompensate by trying to impress you. Either way, you gain the upper hand, not because you manipulated them directly, but because you let them manipulate themselves. How relationships shift. This is where it gets uncomfortable. When you stop explaining yourself, some relationships will fracture. Friends who depended on your constant self-disclosure will feel you've changed. Colleagues may label you difficult or secretive. Even family might accuse you of withholding. Why? Because they were never relating to you. They were relating to the access they had to you. The moment you close that access, they feel betrayed. But here's the revelation. The ones who stay, who respect your boundaries without demanding justification, are the ones who value you, not your compliance. The silent gravity. Over time, you'll notice something else. People start coming to you differently. They weigh their words before speaking. They rehearse what they'll say in their minds, anticipating your reaction. You've become an unknown variable in their calculations. And an unknown variable is dangerous because it can't be predicted or controlled. This is silent gravity, the invisible pull of someone who is unshakable, unreadable, and unapologetic. It's why seasoned negotiators often remain quiet for long stretches. It's why interrogators fear the suspect who says nothing. It's why the most influential leaders speak last, or sometimes not at all. The social cost of mystery. Of course, this weapon comes with a price. Your mystery will make you magnetic to some, intolerable to others. In group dynamics, people often seek comfort and predictability. When you don't explain yourself, you disrupt that comfort. You force uncertainty into their mental landscape, and uncertainty breeds both fascination and resentment. Some will seek to get closer to figure you out. Others will distance themselves, unable to tolerate the tension. You must decide whether you're willing to lose the comfort of fitting in for the power of standing apart, the internal shift. The most profound consequence, though, isn't what happens to others. It's what happens to you. At first, resisting the urge to explain feels like a battle with your own nervous system. Your heart might race. Your thoughts might scream, "Say something or they'll think you're wrong." But over time, you'll realize something liberating. You don't have to win every argument. You don't have to convince anyone. You don't have to prove your worth in real time to anyone who demands it. And when that clicks, your self-worth stops being dependent on outside validation. You're no longer living in reaction to the opinions of others. You're moving according to your own internal compass. Why this frightens the world. A person who doesn't explain themselves is dangerous to the system. Why? Because they can't be guilted, shamed, or coerced into compliance through public opinion. They're immune to one of the most effective tools of social control. In a world where everyone is constantly narrating, justifying, and defending their choices, the one who refuses creates a break in the pattern. And in that break lies power. But it's not the kind of power you can borrow. It's the kind you must build day by day in silence. And that leads us to the question that changes everything. If explaining yourself is a reflex built into you since childhood, how do you break it? The answer lies in rebellion. But not the loud kind. The rebellion I'm talking about is invisible, internal, and devastatingly effective. Rebellion doesn't always look like fire and noise. Sometimes it looks like sitting in a room full of people who demand an answer and giving them nothing. Sometimes the loudest act of defiance is absolute silence. But make no mistake, choosing not to explain yourself is not passivity. It's not avoidance. It's an active, deliberate dismantling of the mental conditioning that has kept you compliant your entire life. It's psychological war. Step 1. Kill the reflex. The first step in breaking free is catching yourself in the moment. Notice when someone challenges you, questions you, or looks at you with that raised eyebrow that seems to demand an explanation. You'll feel it in your body first. The spike of adrenaline, the quickening heartbeat, the subtle tightening in your throat. That's the reflex, that's the chain tightening. Your task is to pause, count to 3 in your head. Let the silence stretch until it feels almost unbearable. You'll want to fill it. You'll want to smooth it over. You'll want to give them something. Don't. In that pause, you're rewiring your brain. You're teaching yourself that discomfort is survivable, that the world doesn't end just because someone doesn't understand you immediately. Step 2. Learn the art of the minimal reply. Not all rebellion is pure silence. Sometimes the weapon is in how little you give. When someone asks, "Why did you do that?" you don't have to give the full explanation. You can say, "I had my reasons. It felt right, because I decided to." These answers give nothing away, yet they're not hostile. They signal that your decision is final, your thinking is your own, and your approval is not up for negotiation. Machiavelli would have called this measured ambiguity, enough to close the conversation, but not enough to hand over your power. Step 3. Practice selective openness. Complete mystery can work against you if used without precision. The goal isn't to be unreadable in everything. It's to be unreadable in the moments that matter. Share small, harmless details about your day, your opinions, or your preferences. Let people feel like they know you until the conversation turns toward matters of decision, strategy, or values. That's when you close the gates. This balance makes you seem approachable without giving away your strategic core. It's the same way seasoned negotiators will talk casually about sports, the weather, or weekend plans, but will never reveal their bottom line. Step 4. Break the approval addiction. Here's the harsh truth. As long as you need people to like or approve of you, you'll keep explaining yourself. Approval is a drug, and explaining yourself is the dose you keep taking to get it. The withdrawal symptoms are real. People may pull away, confront you, or accuse you, "Oh,